TCGO. We're going to go over one more base Neo deck that I happen to have here in the studio. We have got Kingdra. Kingdra is largely considered to be one of, if not the best deck by a lot of the enthusiasts who still play the base to Neo formats. It made up both of the decks that were in the finals of the base Neo tournament that I held here at Full Grip Games. I also heard that it won a base Neo formats in Chile that was hosted recently, so that's very cool as well. I do have quite a bit of Kingdra gameplay on YouTube. If you want to check out the channel, Tricky Jim on YouTube. I'm going to be going over this deck here, talking about all the different cards in the list and why it is so dang good in base Neo format. So, starting things off, the Kingdra deck does play 4 copies of Cleffa, which is a staple in just about every single base to Neo deck. Cleffa has that Eek attack, allowing you to shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 7 cards. Got free retreat, no weakness, and only 30 HP. But the busted thing about Cleffa and all baby Pokemon is that they have the baby rule, which makes it so that if your opponent is trying to attack you while you have Cleffa in the active, they have to flip. If tails, their turn ends, no attack, do not pass go, do not collect 200. None of that. So, very cool. Cleffa, excellent setup Pokemon, and very good for getting your Kingdras into play. Horsey, also, thank goodness, has free retreat. So Horsey is a very good pivot Pokemon. If you start Horsey, very easy to get a Cleffa into the active position and use that Eek to set up Horsey. Weak to Lightning, no retreat cost, and 50 hit points. Really no other point of the Horsey other than to evolve into Sidra. And Sidra is where things start to get interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about this Sidra and see what it contributes to the Kingdra deck. Sidra, it's got 2 attacks. First one is Bubble, flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Pretty standard fare there for a stage 1 water Pokemon. And then Mud Splash. Mud Splash is actually the main attack of this deck, which is hilarious. Because as we saw with like Sneasel decks, Beat Up actually reads pretty good and can do a ton of damage. Mud Splash only does 30 damage. So Mud Splash does 30 damage, and if your opponent has any bench Pokemon, you get to choose one of them, flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 10 damage to that Pokemon. So for 2 water energy, you get to do 30 damage and then a 50% chance of sniping 10. How crazy is it that that attack is one of the best attacks in this format? Now, keep in mind, it's not going to be Sidra that is using that attack. It is going to be Kingdra. So this is what makes this deck so stinking good. Kingdra has the Genetic Memory attack. Genetic Memory reads, use any attack from Kingdra's basic Pokemon card or evolution card, basically the cards underneath it, right? And Kingdra does not have to pay for that attack's energy cost. Kingdra has got 90 hit points, right? No weakness for some reason. And for 1 energy, can do 30 damage, snipe 10. So that seems okay. But when we start thinking about all the implications of having a 1 energy attack, this starts to get a lot better. 90 hit points is a ton of HP, and a 1 energy attack means that we get to use cards like Super Energy Removal like nobody's business. You guys remember Super Energy Removal, right? You get to discard 1 energy card attached to one of your own Pokemon, and then you discard 2 energies attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Kingdra uses Super Energy Removal very easily. And, of course, we'd already talked about Recycle Energy. So, with Super Energy Removal and Recycle Energy, you could actually target your own Recycle Energy with super energy removal. And then instead of going to the discard pile, the recycle energy just goes back to your hand. And then you attach the recycle energy right back to the Kingdra. And you start using genetic memory again and again. So the idea is to just spam the Mud Splash attack turn after turn after turn, and eventually you just load up damage on your opponent's side of the field, and you deny them of energy the entire time with energy removals and super energy removals. And since Kingdra has got 90 HP, it can also tank a ton of hits. And the most annoying part about this deck, believe it or not, is definitely going to be these Pokemon Centers. Pokemon Center reads, remove all damage counters from each of your own Pokemon that has damage counters on them, and then discard all energy attached to those Pokemon. So, Kingdra is going to be able to soak hits turn after turn after turn. And because it has 90 HP and no weakness, it's very hard to knock out. And then you can use Pokemon Center to heal all of the damage from it. And instead of the recycle energy getting discarded, it just goes back to your hand, and then you can attach it back to the Kingdra, and then you keep plugging away. So Pokemon Center gives these Kingdras even more survivability. Another cool thing you could do is Twister. Even though your main attack is going to be genetic memory, Twister deals 50 damage for 2 water and 2 colorless. You flip 2 coins, and for each heads, you choose 1 energy card attached to the defending Pokemon, and you discard them. If both are tails, this attack does nothing, not even damage. So Kingdra has this cool, big hitting attack if you need it. And you can kind of build up to that Twister as you are dishing out Mud Splashes turn after turn. And then Pokemon Center, obviously very good, 90 HP. But what makes it even more annoying to deal with, let's see, where is this card? Oh my gosh, chat. Am I missing it, or is it right here? Ah, here they are. Is the 4 copies of Focus Band. Yeah, you guys remember Focus Band? Focus Band makes it so that anytime a Pokemon were to get knocked out, you flip a coin. If heads, the Pokemon is not knocked out. Instead, it survives with 10 hit points. So, imagine this. We've got Kingdra. He's got 90 hit points, right? He's very difficult to knock out. Finally, you're able to deal enough damage to knock out Kingdra, despite getting energy removal and super energy removal the entire game. Then, you could flip a heads on Focus Band. He lives with 10 HP. And while he's got 10 HP remaining, you just go ahead and make your opponent want to flip the table by playing a Pokemon Center and healing all of the damage from your Kingdra. So that is very broken. Focus Band is an insane card. And the crazy thing about Focus Band in this format is that there's no Field Blower, there's no Faba, there's no Tool Scrapper. There is effectively no trainer card that gets rid of Pokemon tool cards from the defending Pokemon. So Focus Band is insanely good, especially in this Kingdra deck. It is one of the main reasons that the Kingdra deck is such a powerhouse deck to deal with in this format. We still got a few more Pokemon to review, though. Magby is insane. Magby is a baby Pokemon with the baby rule that has the Sputter attack. It reads, all Pokemon powers stop working until the end of your next turn. So Sputter can stop Pokemon powers from working for an attack, and it deals 10 damage, which can be very annoying, especially if you're using Sputter and then removing energy with energy removal and super energy removal. And then Pichu is very good for this deck as well. It's another 1 energy attacker, and it's got amazing artwork. I actually want to take a moment to show this off because, I mean, this artwork is absolutely gorgeous. I love this Pichu art. It's got an attack, Zap. Zap does 20 damage to each Pokemon in play that has a Pokemon power. And you may notice that none of the Pokemon in this Kingdra deck have a Pokemon power. So Zap can be very good at spreading damage against decks that run a lot of Pokemon powers. As we saw, the Sneasel Crobat deck, certainly there are a lot of Pokemon in that deck that do have Pokemon powers in it. So Pichu, very, very good. And awesome for this deck since it only has a 1 energy attack and it spreads damage. And this deck does love to spread damage. Now, as far as the rest of the trainers go, we do have 3 energy removal. We said that energy removal is very potent in this deck since you're going to try to deny your opponent as much energy as possible while dishing out your Mud Splashes turn after turn. We also play 3 copies of Super Energy Removal, 3 copies of Pokemon Center, which allow you to glance off that damage turn after turn that you're going to be gathering on your Kingdras, 3 copies of Item Finder, which can get back your valuable Pokemon Centers, Super Energy Removals, or Energy Removals. Our draw engine, very thin. I mean, imagine this. There's only 4 draw cards in this deck, but there are 4 Cleffa, right? And the 4 Cleffa allow you to eke. So the crazy thing about this format is that since there are so few draw cards being run in a lot of the decks, it's like you're usually drawing cards with Cleffa, but when you get a Kingdra into the active position and actually start attacking, you're usually not going to be drawing cards. So if you get last while you have a Kingdra active, then it's very hard to refresh your hand and see new cards. So that's an interaction that comes up all the time in this format, is that you either have Cleffa in the active and you're drawing cards, or you have an attacker in the active and you're not drawing cards. We do have 2 copies of Professor Oak, discard your hand, draw 7, amazing effect, and 2 copies of Professor Elm, shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 7 cards, but you cannot play any more trainer cards this turn. We also play 2 copies of Gust of Wind. Gust of Wind is great for just finishing off targets that you may have weakened on the opponent's bench with Genetic Memory and Mud Splash. Another cool thing about Mud Splash, it does 30 damage, which is a perfect 2-hit KO on the popular Sneasel. And since Sneasel is everywhere, being able to remove energy from Sneasels and then 2-hit KO the Sneasels, extremely good as well. 2 Gusts of Winds, 2 Energy Stadium. Energy Stadium just makes sure that you continuously have the energy that you need in order to attack turn after turn. Not only are the recycle energies going to be coming back from the discard pile, but Energy Stadium allows you to, every turn, flip coin. If heads, you could put a basic energy card from your discard pile back into your hand. Both players get to do this, so it's just a nice, useful stadium. I think the stadium is very good. It would probably see play today if it were legal, just because it's kind of like Viridian, except it's on a coin flip and you get to get them out of the discard pile. I really like that retrievability. Very good card altogether. We have 3 copies of Computer Search, which are good for going and fetching out your Cleffa early on. Also good for piecing together the evolution line between Kingdra and Sidra. You can see there's not really any sort of ball search cards or anything like that in this format. Computer Search is more or less it. So we got the 3 copies of Computer Search, 1 Nightly Garbage Run, which is like Super Rod. You get to shuffle 3 basic Pokemon evolution cards and or basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. So you basically get to choose any combination of 3 basic energy or Pokemon cards from your discard pile, put them back into literally the same exact thing as Super Rod, except it's called Nightly Garbage Run and it's got a way cooler artwork. 1 copy of Lass. Lass is an extremely disruptive trainer card, which can strip both you and the opponent of all trainer cards in your hand, and that can just make it so that your opponent doesn't have any sort of key trainer cards that they may want in their hand during certain turns. Very good in the mirror for trying to remove cards like Pokemon Center from your opponent's hand when you go in with a big attack so that they cannot heal. And then we've got 1 copy of Double Gust. Now, Kingdra and Sidra do not have free retreats. However, usually you're going to want to attack with them anyway, so Double Gust, very good for switching your Kingdra to the bench, maybe into a Cleffa or something like that. and then targeting down something on the opponent's bench. So that goes with our Gust of Wind as far as gust options go. And then 2 copies of Narrow Gym. And this card is just absolutely insane in this deck. Narrow Gym is kind of like Ye Olden Parallel City. No player may have more than 4 Pokemon on his or her bench. When this card is played, if a player has 5 Pokemon on their bench, that player chooses one of them and returns it and all cards attached to it to his or her hand. If both players have to return a Pokemon, your opponent returns a Pokemon first. So the crazy thing about that is it makes it so that both you and your opponent cannot have more than 4 Pokemon on the bench. So if you have a damaged Kingdra, you can actually use Narrow Gym to bump the damaged Kingdra back up to your hand and then re-evolve it later on. So it's basically another out to be able to heal and is extremely strong for that function. So nice little Narrow Gym inclusion there. And then we do play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 water energy. Don't actually need a lot because we have the gym, the energy stadium to be able to bring them back. And then 4 copies of Recycle Energy, the energy that just keeps on giving. So that's it for the Kingdra deck review. Shout out to Jason Klaczynski and his blog. It's JClack's Pokemon, I think at WordPress, something like that. Jason Klaczynski, 3-time world champion, has a huge wealth of knowledge for these old formats where I get a lot of my information on base to Neo formats. So big props to Jason for sharing this information with the greater Pokemon community. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, ring that bell, and check me out on Twitch, where I stream Pokemon trading card game content every single weekday. Also, make sure to check out fullgripgames.com for all of your trading card game singles. You can get a lot of these old Wizards of the Coast cards on fullgripgames.com. Also, fullgripcodes.com, where I have instant PTCGO code delivery. And thank you all for watching the video. Make sure to check me